The crystalline spires of the Araxian Command Center pulsed with an eerie violet glow as High Commander Vizora studied the holographic display before her. Her iridescent scales shimmered with tension as she processed the incoming data. The unknown vessel had appeared at the edge of the Sanctum Nebula, their most sacred space, without warning or authorization. Analysis complete, High Commander reported First Sentinel Kraz, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic resonance of the warrior caste. The vessel's design matches nothing in our archives. Energy signatures are unprecedented. Vizora's secondary hearts quickened their pace. In 3 centuries of defending Araxian space, she had never encountered anything like this. The vessel's hull seemed to absorb their scanning beams rather than reflect them, and its power core readings defied their most advanced detection systems. Magnification, she ordered, her inner eyelids narrowing as the image expanded. The ship was beautiful in its alien way, sleek lines of dark metal that seemed to drink in the starlight, punctuated by what appeared to be observation ports along its flanks. But it was the size that gave her pause. The vessel was barely a quarter the length of an Araxian cruiser, yet its power output rivaled their largest battleships. "They're moving," High Commander Kraz announced, his crystalline interface terminal chiming with urgent data. Course plotting indicates they're heading directly for the Temple of First Light. A collective gasp rippled through the command center. The Temple of First Light was their civilization's most sacred site, the place where their ancestors had first achieved consciousness under the guidance of the crystal mines. No outsider had ever been permitted to approach it. "Deploy the Guardian Fleet," Vizora commanded, her scales shifting to the deep purple of tactical authority. "Standard containment formation. Broadcast warnings on all known frequencies." The response was immediate. 12 Araxian warships, their crystalline hulls gleaming with internal energy, emerged from their docking stations. They moved with practiced precision, forming a barrier between the intruder and the sacred temple. "Unknown vessel," Vizora's voice rang out across space, carried by subspace transmitters. "You have entered restricted Araxian space. Alter course immediately or face defensive action." The response came not in words, but in a burst of energy readings that sent their sensors into chaos. The alien ship's power core suddenly flared to life, its output doubling, then tripling in seconds. "High Commander," Kraz's voice carried an edge of panic. "They're activating some kind of... It's not like any weapon signature we've seen before." Vizora's scales rippled with decision. They couldn't risk the temple. "Launch warning shots. Pattern Delta 7. Show them our resolve." Streams of crystalline energy lanced out from the Guardian Fleet, deliberately missing the alien vessel that demonstrating the Araxians' firing solution capabilities. It was a display that had deterred countless would-be invaders over the centuries. The alien ship's response shook Vizora to her core. Rather than retreat or return fire, it simply shifted. One moment it was there. The next it seemed to slip sideways in space, the warning shots passing harmlessly through where it had been. When it reappeared, it was closer to the temple, having bypassed half their defensive line in an instant. "Impossible," Kraz whispered. "No known species has mastered phase shift technology. The energy requirements alone." A new signal cut through their communications channels. Unlike the standard universal trading languages or mathematical sequences used in first contact situations, this was something entirely different. It carried what seemed like thousands of encoded data packets, each one containing. "High Commander," called out Second Sentinel Mira from her communication station. "They're transmitting historical records, scientific data, cultural information. It's too much to process all at once." Vizora's scales shifted to the blue-green of analytical focus. This was not the approach of a hostile force, yet the technological gap between their civilizations was becoming frighteningly clear. If these aliens wanted to attack, their phase shift technology alone would make them nearly unstoppable. "Isolate a simple response channel," she ordered. "Send back our own first contact protocols, but maintain battle stations. Whatever these beings are, they've demonstrated power we can't match. Let's hope they're as peaceful as their transmission suggests. As her orders were carried out, Vizara studied the alien ship once more. Its dark hull now seemed to ripple with subtle patterns, almost like it was trying to mimic the crystalline aesthetics of Araxian architecture. Was it somehow adapting to them? Learning. The implications were both fascinating and terrifying. The response came moments later. A single, clear transmission in perfect Araxian language. Greetings, people of the crystal ships. We are the humans of Earth, and we come seeking knowledge, not conflict. We understand we have trespassed in sacred space, and we offer our sincere apologies. With your permission, we would like to explain our presence and learn from your wisdom. Humans. Vizara had never heard of them. Yet here they were, casually demonstrating technology that her people had deemed theoretically impossible, while simultaneously showing a level of diplomatic courtesy that suggested genuine peaceful intent. Prepare for contact, she announced to her crew, her scales now showing the complex patterns of cautious optimism. But remember, they've already shown us that they could likely break through our defenses at will. The fact that they choose not to may be the most important thing we've learned about them so far. The fate of first contact, and perhaps the future of both their species, now rested on what would happen next. Vizara could only hope that her people's diplomatic skills would prove as advanced as these humans' technology. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the UES Discovery, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing the crystalline alien fleet arrayed before them. The ship's quantum core hummed quietly beneath her feet, ready to phase shift again if necessary, though she hoped it wouldn't come to that. Their weapon systems are impressive, remarked Dr. James Wilson, the ship's xenorchaeologist. Those energy beams they fired, they're using some kind of crystalline fusion technology we've never seen before. His excitement was barely contained, even in this tense situation. More importantly, added Security Chief Maya Rodriguez, they fired warning shots instead of going straight for a kill shot. That tells us something about their ethics. She stood at her station, monitoring the alien fleet's movements with practiced precision. The Discovery's AI, Araya, manifested as a shimmering blue hologram beside the captain. Analysis of their transmission patterns suggests a highly structured society. The crystalline architecture of their vessels indicates not just technological advancement, but a deep integration of their technology with their cultural identity. Chen nodded, processing all this information. When they detected the unusual energy signatures from the Sanctum Nebula, they'd expected to find another abandoned precursor site. Instead, they'd stumbled upon what appeared to be a thriving civilization, one that clearly valued this space deeply. Have we finished translating their language? She asked, though she already knew Araya would have prioritized this task. Yes, Captain, Araya responded. Their linguistic structure is fascinating. It appears to use crystalline harmonics as well as traditional sound waves. I've adapted our universal translator to account for both the auditory and harmonic components. The main view screen showed the alien vessels in stark detail. Their crystalline hulls seemed to pulse with internal energy, creating patterns that Araya was already suggesting might be a form of nonverbal communication. They're hailing us again, Lieutenant Sarah O'Connor reported from communications, more formal this time. I think our response impressed them. Chen smiled slightly. Their initial transmission, a comprehensive data packet containing Earth's history, scientific achievements, and cultural information, had been a calculated risk. Some species saw such openness as a sign of weakness, but she had bet that a civilization advanced enough to harness crystalline fusion would value knowledge. Captain, Araya interrupted, her holographic form flickering with new data. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from what appears to be a structure behind their defensive line. Based on their reaction to our approach and the amount of protection they've deployed, I believe we've inadvertently approached something of tremendous cultural significance. The Temple of First Light, Dr. Wilson breathed, his archaeological instincts kicking in. Their transmissions mentioned it. It seems to be some kind of origin site for their species' consciousness. Captain, this could be unprecedented. A species that actually preserved the site of their evolutionary leap to sapience. Chen raised a hand, silencing the excited chatter that had broken out on the bridge. Let's remember why we're here. First contact protocol is clear. We respect their boundaries and their sacred spaces. She turned to O'Connor. Open a channel. The lieutenant nodded, and Chen spoke, knowing ARIA would translate her words into both the auditory and harmonic components of the alien language. High Commander Vizara of the Araxian Empire. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Discovery. We acknowledge the sacred nature of this space and apologize for our intrusion. We are explorers and scholars, seeking to learn from and share knowledge with other civilizations. With your permission, we would like to establish diplomatic relations and learn about your people. The response came quickly, and Chen could hear the surprise in the alien commander's harmonically enhanced voice. Captain Chen, your technology is unlike anything we have encountered. You could have forced your way past our defenses, yet you choose dialogue. Why? Chen's response was immediate and firm. Because true strength lies not in demonstrating power, but in knowing when not to use it. Humanity learned this lesson through our own history. We seek not to dominate, but to understand. There was a long pause, and Chen could imagine the alien commander considering her words. When Vizara spoke again, the harmonic undertones of her voice carried what ARIA translated as cautious optimism. Perhaps, Vizara said, there is wisdom in your approach. We will lower our weapons, but our shields will remain active. If you agree, we would welcome your ship at our outer docking station, where we might meet in person and discuss the possibility of cultural exchange. Chen looked around at her crew, seeing the excitement in their eyes. This was why they had joined the United Earth Exploration Fleet, not for conquest or power, but for moments like this, when two civilizations could come together and learn from each other. We would be honored, Chen replied. And I assure you, your sacred space will be respected. We look forward to learning about the Temple of First Light from your own historical records, rather than through direct observation. As the Discovery moved carefully toward the designated docking station, Chen could see the Araxian ships adjusting their formation, still protective, but no longer hostile. First contact was always a delicate dance, but humanity had learned that showing respect and restraint often yielded better results than displaying power. Araya, she said quietly, begin preparing cultural exchange protocols. Let's show our new friends that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our endless desire to learn and understand. The Araxian diplomatic chamber was a marvel of crystalline architecture, its faceted walls refracting light in complex patterns that ARIA had identified as a form of emotional communication. Captain Chen sat across from High Commander Vizara, their meeting having progressed far better than either might have expected, when every emergency alert in both their systems activated simultaneously. Multiple quantum ruptures detected. Aria's voice rang through Chen's neural link as warning lights pulsed through the crystalline chamber. Unknown vessels emerging throughout the sector. Vizara's scales shifted to deep crimson as she received similar alerts from her command network. The chamber's walls projected a massive tactical display, showing dozens of tiers in space-time fabric appearing around the Sanctum Nebula. Voidborn, Vizara hissed, the harmonic undertones of her voice carrying frequencies that made the humans' teeth ache. We thought they were just legends. Stories to frighten children. The tactical display showed strange, shadowy shapes emerging from the ruptures, ships that seemed to be made of darkness itself, absorbing both light and sensor scans. They moved with an unsettling organic fluidity, like predators circling their prey. Araya. Analysis. Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the growing tension. The vessels appear to be utilizing some form of negative energy propulsion, the AI reported. Their presence is actually distorting local spacetime. More concerning, They're positioning themselves in a pattern that suggests they're going to attack the temple, Vezara finished, her scales now pulsing with patterns of deep concern. The Voidborn were said to feed on consciousness itself. The temple of first light, the birthplace of our awareness, would be irresistible to them. The Araxian fleet was already moving to defensive positions, their crystalline ships forming intricate geometric patterns that Chen recognized as mathematically optimal for covering fire. But against enemies that could tear holes in space-time itself. High Commander, Chen said, standing, the Discovery's quantum core gives us unique capabilities against space-time distortions. Let us help. Visara's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. An expression of surprise. According to Araya's cultural database, you would risk your ship and crew for our sacred site. Because that's what humans do, Chen replied simply. We protect what matters, whether it's ours or not. Dr. Wilson, what can you tell us about these Voidborn from Araxian records? The xenorchaeologist was already poring through the historical data they've been granted access to. The legends speak of beings that exist partially outside normal spacetime. They're said to be drawn to places of profound consciousness or spiritual significance. The stories say they once nearly destroyed the Araxians' ancestors before mysteriously vanishing. Not vanishing, Vezara corrected, her harmonic tones carrying deep dread. Waiting. Growing stronger. And now they've returned. The first attack came without warning. One of the shadow ships simply appeared next to an Araxian cruiser, its presence somehow wrong in a way that made human minds recoil. Dark energy tendrils lashed out, beginning to tear the crystalline vessel apart. Discovery, combat stations. Shen ordered through her neural link. Araya, prepare for quantum phase shift. Maya, power up the temporal stabilization field. Captain, Vezara's voice carried both alarm and confusion. Your ship is designed for exploration, not combat. The Voidborn will find out exactly what humans are capable of when protecting something worth fighting for, Chen finished. She turned to her temporary command console in the diplomatic chamber. High Commander, if you'll grant us access to your tactical network, I believe we can coordinate our responses. Vezara studied her for a moment, then made a gesture that caused a crystal to rise from the floor, offering itself to Chen. Link established. But what can one exploration vessel do against beings that exist partially outside spacetime? Chen allowed herself a small smile as she felt the Discovery systems integrating with the Araxian network. That's just it, High Commander. Thanks to our quantum drive technology, we don't just exist in spacetime. We can manipulate it. Araya, show them. The Discovery phase shifted into position beside the besieged Araxian cruiser. Its temporal stabilization field expanded, suddenly forcing the local spacetime fabric to behave normally. The shadow ship's dark energy tendrils dissipated as they hit the field, unable to maintain their impossible physics within it. Impossible, Vezara breathed, watching as the Discovery's actions created a safe zone where her ships could effectively fight back. You can neutralize their spacetime distortions. We can do more than that, Chen replied, watching as more Voidborn ships emerged from their ruptures. But we'll need to work together. Your crystalline energy weapons combined with our quantum field technology. I think I know how we can not just drive them back, but seal their ruptures permanently. The chamber's walls pulsed with urgent alerts as more shadow ships appeared. Time was running out. The Temple of First Light glowed behind them, its ancient crystalline spires seeming to dim as the Voidborn's influence spread. Tell me, Vezara said, her scales shifting to the deep blue of tactical planning. The Discovery's quantum core thrummed with power as Captain Chen outlined her plan, her hands moving through the crystalline holographic display. Around them, the battle raged as Araxian ships fought desperately against the encroaching Voidborn vessels. Your crystalline energy weapons, Chen explained. They're not just weapons, they're consciousness manipulators. That's why they're so effective at defending your temple, if we combine them with our quantum field technology. We could force the Voidborn fully into our reality. Vezara finished, her scales flickering with sudden understanding. Make them vulnerable. RIA. Run the calculations, Chen commanded. The AI's holographic form shimmered as it processed the complex physics involved. Theory is sound, Captain, RIA reported. The crystalline energy would act as a consciousness anchor, while our quantum fields stabilize local spacetime. However, the power requirements would be enormous, Dr. Wilson interjected, looking up from his analysis of Araxian technical data. We'd need to channel the energy of multiple crystalline ships through a single point, synchronized perfectly with our quantum field. A massive explosion rocked the diplomatic chamber as another Araxian vessel fell to the Voidborn's attack. The shadow ships were learning, adapting their tactics. 3 of them now moved together, their combined spacetime distortions beginning to overcome even the Discovery's stabilization field. The temple, Vezara said suddenly, her harmonic tones carrying excitement. It's the largest crystalline consciousness structure we've ever built. If we could use it as a focus point, we'd have all the power we need, Chen finished. But wouldn't that put your sacred site at risk? Vezara's scales shifted through complex patterns that ARIA translated as determination tinged with irony. The temple exists to commemorate our species' awakening to consciousness. What better way to honor that than by using it to defend consciousness itself? The plan came together quickly, born of desperate necessity, and the unique combination of human and Araxian insights. The Discovery would position itself at the heart of the temple's crystalline matrix, using its quantum core to create a massive stabilization field. The Araxian fleet would form a precise geometric pattern around it, their crystalline weapons linking to the temple's structure. All ships in position, Maya reported from her security station. Araxian fleet reporting ready. But Captain, the Voidborn are massing for something big. Their spacetime distortions are off the charts. Chen looked at Vezara, who stood beside her at the Discovery's emergency bridge station. Last chance to reconsider. If this goes wrong, then we face oblivion together, Vezara replied firmly. But if it works, we prove that different species can achieve more together than they ever could alone. RIA, begin quantum field generation, Chen ordered. Maya, route all power to the stabilization systems. Dr. Wilson, monitor the temple's crystalline matrix. If anything starts to destabilize. The ship hummed as its quantum core powered up to unprecedented levels. Through the view screen, they could see the Araxian fleet's energy weapons linking together, creating a lattice of light that connected to the temple's spires. The Voidborn ships surged forward, their shadowy forms writhing as they sensed the building power. Crystalline energy network at full power, Vezara reported, her own neural links connected to her fleet's systems. Temple matrix stable, but there's something else. The consciousness patterns within the temple, they're responding to your quantum field, evolving, adapting. Of course, Dr. Wilson breathed. The temple doesn't just commemorate consciousness, it actively promotes its evolution. Captain, I think we might achieve more than just forcing the Voidborn into normal space. We might. Quantum field at maximum. Maya interrupted. Voidborn approaching critical distance. Chen shared one last look with Vezara. Human and Araxian. Their species had developed along completely different paths, evolved different technologies, different ways of thinking. But in this moment, they were unified in purpose. Execute, they commanded simultaneously. The Discovery's quantum field exploded outward, carried by the crystalline energy network. The Temple of First Light blazed with power, its consciousness-enhancing properties amplified by human technology. Space itself seemed to shudder as the combined force slammed into the Voidborn fleet. The shadow ships writhed, their partial existence suddenly forced fully into normal spacetime. But something else was happening. The Temple's consciousness-affecting energies, merged with human quantum fields, weren't just forcing them into reality. They were changing them. Incredible, Dr. Wilson gasped, watching his sensors. The Voidborn. They're not just beings that exist partially outside space-time. They're consciousness that never fully evolved into physical form. And now, through the view screen, they watched as the shadow ships began to transform. Their dark, formless shapes crystallized, taking on structures that seemed to combine both Voidborn and Araxian characteristics. The space-time ruptures they'd emerged from sealed themselves as the beings fully entered normal space. "They're becoming," Vezara whispered, her scales showing patterns Aria had never seen before. "Just as my ancestors achieved consciousness in the temple, they're achieving physicality." The battle was over. But something far more significant had been achieved. Human quantum science and Araxian consciousness technology hadn't just defeated an enemy. They had helped birth a new form of life. 1 month after the Voidborn transformation, the Temple of First Light hosted an unprecedented gathering. The temple's crystalline chambers, now showcasing an elegant fusion of original Araxian architecture and newly formed Voidborn crystalline patterns, hummed with the presence of 3 very different species. Captain Chen stood beside High Commander Vezara, watching as a group of transformed Voidborn, their crystalline bodies now a deep purple that seemed to contain hints of their original shadow essence, interfaced with the temple's consciousness matrix. The beams they had once feared as destroyers were now helping to enhance and evolve the very systems they had tried to destroy. "Their understanding of consciousness is remarkable," Dr. Wilson commented, reviewing data streams from his research station. "They existed as pure thought for so long, trapped between realities. Now they're helping us comprehend consciousness itself in ways we never imagined. And in return, we gave them what they never knew they needed," Vezara added, her scales showing the complex patterns of philosophical contemplation. Physical form, concrete existence, the ability to interact with the universe instead of simply haunting its edges. The Discovery's quantum core had been permanently modified by the events of the battle, now generating a unique field that helped stabilize the Voidborn's new physical forms. Similarly, the Araxians' crystalline technology had evolved, incorporating aspects of both human science and Voidborn consciousness manipulation. The United Earth Council is quite eager to establish permanent diplomatic relations, Chen said, watching as Aria's holographic form interacted with both Araxian computers and Voidborn consciousness streams. "They're already talking about a joint research initiative into consciousness technology." "The Araxian High Council feels similarly," Vezara replied. "Though I must admit, they're particularly interested in your quantum drive technology. The ability to phase shift through space-time would revolutionize our exploration capabilities." A soft chiming drew their attention to the temple's central chamber, where one of the transformed Voidborn, who had taken the name Genesis, was ready to address them. Its crystalline form pulsed with layers of meaning that both human technology and Araxian senses could now interpret. "We have completed our initial integration with the temple systems," Genesis communicated, its thoughts carried simultaneously through standard language, harmonic resonance, and consciousness waves. "What we once sought to consume, we now understand how to nurture and grow. The Temple of First Light will become more than a memorial to the past. It will be a beacon for the future." Chen felt a familiar surge of pride and wonder, the same feelings that had driven humanity to the stars in the first place. "What kind of beacon?" "A place where consciousness itself can evolve," Genesis explained, its crystalline form shifting through colors that expressed complex concepts. "The combination of human quantum science, Araxian crystalline technology, and our understanding of consciousness creates possibilities none of our species could have achieved alone." "The temple was already a sacred space," Vezara added, her scales showing patterns of excitement. "But now it can be more. A place where different species come together, not just to learn from the past, but to shape the future." Dr. Wilson looked up from his readings, his eyes wide with realization. "The energy patterns, they're similar to what we saw during the transformation. The temple isn't just preserving consciousness anymore. It's advancing it, helping it evolve. As it should, Genesis responded. Consciousness should never be static. It must grow, change, become more than it was, just as we have become more than we were through our contact with your species. Captain Chen looked around the chamber, taking in the sight of humans, Araxians, and transformed Voidborn working together in harmony. When the Discovery had first detected those unusual energy signatures from the Sanctum Nebula, none of them could have imagined where it would lead. I think we all have become more than we were, she said thoughtfully. My people have always believed that our greatest strength lies not in our technology or our abilities, but in our capacity to adapt, to learn, to grow through cooperation with others. This proves that principle extends beyond humanity. Indeed, Vezar agreed, her scales showing the pattern for profound understanding. The old stories spoke of the Voidborn as destroyers of consciousness. Instead, they have become its cultivators. Just as humans came to our sacred space, not as conquerors but as scholars, and in doing so, helped us defend everything we hold dear. The temple's crystalline spires pulsed with new energy, a perfect fusion of human quantum fields, Araxian consciousness technology, and Voidborn evolutionary patterns. It stood as a testament not just to the past, but to the infinite possibilities that arose when different species chose to work together rather than against each other. The stars hold many more mysteries, Genesis observed, its crystalline form resonating with anticipation. Many more forms of consciousness waiting to be discovered, understood, helped to evolve. Then we'll explore them together, Chen replied, sharing a knowing look with Vizara. After all, that's what consciousness does. It grows, it learns, it reaches out to understand the unknown. And it does so best when it doesn't journey alone. The Temple of First Light blazed with renewed purpose, its glow visible from deep space, a beacon not just for the three species gathered there, but for all who might follow, seeking to understand the greatest mystery of all, consciousness itself, and the infinite forms it might take among the stars.